Where once there were 16 teams, the field has now been consolidated down to 3 in the Noodle Cup Series playoffs. The Denver Scream and the Atlanta Pandas face off in the lower bracket final to determine who will earn the right to challenge the Philadelphia Plague in the grand finals. For Denver, it's a story of redemption. After having lost to Philadelphia in the winners final and being relegated to the lower bracket, they seek to overcome one final hurdle for a rematch with Destiny. For Atlanta, the road has been long and arduous since their entry into the lower bracket in the first round. Their mantra so far has been survive and advance. They look to capture the Magic one final time, complete their lower bracket run, and advance to compete for another championship. My name is Pyro Square, joined on the desk for this titanic struggle is Far Out. Welcome back. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Pi. Always great to be with this team. And like you mentioned, the 11-4 Denver Scream and the 10-5 Atlanta Pandas. Philadelphia Plague, of course, waiting for the winner of this matchup in the final game. Of course, these Atlanta Pandas out of the Eastern Conference and the Denver Scream out of the West. It's going to be a top lineups for both teams tonight, and it should be an absolute barn burner, Pi.
Absolutely. And typically something that we don't necessarily see, at least in previous seasons when we had the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. You wouldn't see teams meet up until the grand final, but with the double elim format that we have for the playoffs this season, those matchups have been a little bit more prevalent, and certainly here an Eastern Conference versus Western Conference matchup. And for all intents and purposes, it's looking like it's been pretty even so far. I mean, however, you've got Denver having gone all the way to the winners final, getting knocked down by Philadelphia, and Atlanta, they've been on the cusp couple times now, had to force a couple game sevens, a couple reverse sweeps, and fortunately for them, they're here. But the Magic, will it continue?
Yeah, a bit of a scrappier road. This lower bracket final, a best of 7 format with no bracket reset. The winner of this, if it's the Atlanta Pandas or the Denver, I believe you said playing, having dropped all the way down the Denver Scream, will not have to bracket reset. If they win this matchup, they will go directly in to face the Philadelphia Plague for this Noodle Cup Series final.
And that certainly would be matchup for the ages. And here on the field right now, 5 minutes on the clock, game 1 looks to get underway. Polar Bear, Marked, and Sifri on the field for Atlanta. T-Man, Levani, and Kisvi rostered for the Denver Scream. And an early bout of possession for Denver as it goes into the Atlanta corner. Sifri with a missed read gets bailed out by Polar Bear.
Yeah, 2 go right off the bat for the Atlanta Pandas. They're going to have to keep an eye on that, obviously. Double commits, even the quickest, can prove fatal in these sorts of matchups. Of course, boost meters on screen for all 3 of these players. Sifri up, trying to keep this one offensive for the Pandas, but Kisvi will clear out for the Denver Scream. Now met at half field. T-Man and Marks. T-Man will win the 50-50, but gets dunked only a second later. The Atlanta Pandas players try to swarm. Mark's going to put in the early goal, 4:21, to put Atlanta on the board first early here in game 1.
It's fortuitous bounce. It comes across from the sidewall. Marked with the cut rotation at midfield, able to put that one in with little to no contest from the Denver Scream defense. It's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back from that. But Atlanta, they've got the early goal, and they're looking to add another as Marked with another shot turned aside by Kisvi. It's still in a dangerous area. Polar Bear again for Levani makes the save.
Levani in position there to send that ball away from Polar Bear. There, Polar Bear's pass, of course, leading to that first goal. Sifri now pinching this one out. The clear stopped pretty quickly as the Atlanta Panda players start to hunker down. Sifri now following this one out into the Denver half. Levani answers quickly. Marked will challenge at midfield. That one's off the ceiling, goes towards the goal. Polar Bear hoping for a redirect, but we'll just get a bumper on it nonetheless. Sifri, the ball goes past them. Now Demo onto an offender. The Atlanta Pandas will have to send another look from the Denver Scream away. The Denver Scream starting to mount their offense.
Starting to mount, but that demolition right at the midfield line kind of hampered their start. You could see Levani was waiting for a pass from the sideline into the middle of the field that never quite got there, and the fact that it took so much time because of that demo really allowed the Atlanta defense to regain their structure. 2 minutes just under which where we have played. Kisvi with an air dribble from the side wall looking to test the Atlanta defense, but so far all the questions coming up with easy answers for the Pandas, at least on the defensive side. Polar Bear, once again, will grab that center boost and pursue the ball, leaving it T-Man with a redirect opportunity. Nobody up immediately for Denver until Levani gets a touch. Kisvi It's 50 by Sifrine. It's a touch past T-Man. They have the ball, but no, they can't get a touch on it. Polar Bear with the second.
Yeah, that's Polar Bear's first. Second for the Atlanta Pandas off of 4 shots for that player. And the scoreboard tells the story here early in the 3rd minute of game 1. 6 shots registered already for the Pandas and none for the Denver Scream, as the Atlanta Pandas have just kept things competitive here in game 1, clearing the ball out quickly, meeting a lot more challenges at half field, in the air, as well as closer to the pitch. Now Mark turning with a full tank of boost. Sifri's up for that one in a heartbeat. Will get a flip, use it, but unfortunately not get a ball. Almost all 3 players go for the Denver Scream. Levani tries to clear that one up, but gets 50'd quickly by Polar Bears. It's just more offense from the Pandas.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect Denver to be held off of the score sheet entirely in the rest of this series. And there you go. They finally do get their first shot on target. About 3 minutes played into this game. Polar Bear looking to add a third for Atlanta. It will not go through. Marked with another opportunity. It will go bar down and in.
Yeah, that redirect for Mark is certainly nice. They're second off of free shots. And the air roll pre-flip in a way, just to put a little bit of underspin on that one, and it goes bar down and in. And the third on the board for the Atlanta Pandas. 2 minutes and 11 seconds left here in game 1. It's been a decisive performance from them so far. 9 shots registered and 3 in. That's a 33% shooting ratio team-wide.
Still a lot of time for Denver to work their way back into this game, or at least to get some semblance of their offense going. And honestly, we've seen 1 shot from them so far. I would be surprised if that would stay that way throughout the remainder of this game. Denver once more to the backboard. Levani with a redirect opportunity off of the backboard. It will not go through, but again, looking a little bit more dangerous is this Scream team. Marked as a opportunity, will meet the ball at the cup, but it will fall for Kisvy. Now it's a 3v2 for Denver going back the other way. That pinch does not work. It will go aside to the corner. T-Man, again, unable to make contact with the ball. Denver having to restart.
Now the air dribble from Kisvy looks to take off 2. T-Man's there to finish it, and it will put the Denver Scream on the board. Kisvy not sure if they faked one out. Got bumped, but still beat 2. And off the frame, it's T-Man for the Denver Scream first.
Yeah, and honestly, for Atlanta, that defense has to work a little bit better. You don't expect 1 player to beat 2, especially that close to the goal line. You'd think you'd have a little bit more layered depth and staggering your challenges to make sure that you have everything covered. But great job by Denver to get at least 1 on the board. And like we said, they've got time, and if Atlanta keeps giving away the ball in their own defensive third, it could end up being worse for them. But Marked with a long shot from their own half of the field puts that argument to bed.
Yeah, just off the sidewall bounce. It's another air roll shot for Marked and the hat trick for them as we look to enter this final minute of game 1. Pi, you mentioned the defense from the Atlanta Pandas on that only Denver Scream goal. One would think, having seen the player Kisvy get bumped, that they would not be able to set up a pass for that ball after all. But instead, a little bit of boost and creativity was able to outplay 2 defenders on the Atlanta Pandas and give the Denver Scream that first. But now as we enter the final seconds of this game, their road becomes that much harder in game 1.
And that just speaks to the amount of individual talent that Denver has on their side, and it's worked to great effect throughout the entirety of this playoffs, right? I mean, they've gone through the entire upper bracket, losing only to Philadelphia, who awaits the grand finals, the winner of this match. So they certainly have the talent. They have the firepower to compete at this level. However, we have yet to see it so far outside of that 1 goal.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the Denver Scream having proven their colors and shown their worth in that potential matchup earlier this season due to the new format. But like you said, the Atlanta Pandas here standing in their way, and as a 10-second countdown goes on screen, the Atlanta Pandas will walk away with game 1 and put another thorn in the side of the Denver Scream.
And as time does expire, that ball will hit the ground. Atlanta takes an early lead in this series. However, I would not expect it to stay very much in favor of Atlanta. We'll get a look at the advanced statistics as they are on the screen. You can see the possession and the field domination very much up in the air. It's a coin toss between both of these teams. However, it's just the volumetric analysis of how Atlanta was able to spend a lot of time upfield of their own defensive presence, which really put a lot of pressure on Denver to start getting things going. I mean, looking at, we talked about how they only had 1 shot about 2 or 3 minutes into this game. They end up with 8. So a little bit better in the second half from the Scream, but they're going to need a little bit more kicking up into the higher gear as we move into game 2.
Yeah, Pi, like you mentioned, the field possession a bit up in the air, but the shot total differential from the Atlanta Pandas versus the Denver Scream not as strong as it was earlier in the game, as you mentioned, but the Denver Scream showing a lot more propensity in the back half of game one to put shots at the net, really off counterattack opportunities. Like you mentioned, they were pretty spread out all over the field, and that field possession didn't go one way or another here in game one.
And we talked about Marked. Congratulations to them on getting their hat trick in game number one, but really just a lot of open nets on the back end for Denver, and that's not something that I think they're going to want to continue as we move forward into this series. A little bit more lockdown in terms of their defense, I think, will have them singing a better tune moving into the later parts of this series. But now we move into game number two, Atlanta with a 1-0 series advantage. They look to capitalize on that with another kickoff, and Marked on the ball once again.
Rocket League, such a game of momentum. The Denver Scream will be a little luckier, a little in a better spot if they're able to start this game 2 out, possibly scoring first, or at least staying on an offensive, an extended offensive stay. As we mentioned it, the challenges start to come in, try to push that ball midfield. This shot's going to be towards the net, and it's in. T-Man early for the Denver Scream will give them their first lead in this series so far. A nice play from Kisvy as well, setting up the pass and bumping a defender out. That heads-up play will put the Denver Scream on top first in game two.
And you talked about momentum and how much of an importance that teams put on that whenever we talk about the length of the series, if it goes all the way to 7 games. But that goal especially is going to be very important for the Denver Scream. Not only does it give them their first lead, it's also their first opportunity with which they have to play with a lead. So I expect to see a little bit of a different team now that they have at least a 1-goal cushion to work with.
Yeah, Pi, and like you mentioned, right off the bat, another one screaming quickly across net. Kisvy up very quickly for that one. Still puts tires on the ground with 50 boosts left in the tank. 50-50 from them now, but no offender in place yet to shoot. Levani will come in a little bit of a late challenge. That one goes out to Marks. Shot towards the backboard. It's going to be wide. Sifry's up for the redirect. Will miss, though. 2 players go on behalf of both squads, but that breakaway might give the Denver Scream an option. Kisvy sends one off the side while his T-Man rotates back free. Up to take that one, in Polar Bear in position to try to pinch out as that ball crosses the half line. It will be Levani again. The touch gets shut down from Polar Bear. That ball almost towards the Atlanta Pandas net with a red streak, but Sifry in position to steer it away.
And a little bit more awkward from the Pandas, at least in this start, compared to what we saw in game number one. It's getting a little bit less out of their control. We already saw a triple commit one time on offense, which was met by a triple commit on defense for Denver, and the only reason that Denver wasn't able to capitalize on it was because put the ball just a little bit too far outside. But Mark has yet another open net to work with if they can work the ball infield. Polar Bear not enough boost with which to beat out the Denver defense, but that's a scary moment for Denver, and one that's reminiscent of how they handled game number one. This time doesn't bite them in the butt so far.
Yeah, it's an astute observation, Pi, and you would have thought as well as T-Man sends another one away. First save for T-Man and the second for the Denver Scream team that, as a Denver player demoed in Atlanta, player looking for the goal, Marked had that open net so quickly as Levani will possibly send a very difficult open net to the side. You might have worried that the Denver Scream had pushed too far into the Atlanta Pandas half when Marked had that open net and was able to secure, but 2 defenders back for it still. So we look to cross halftime here. 2 players will go again on an errant midfield touch for the Denver Scream, but they hold on to their lead.
Still holding on. I think they'd like to get at least one more for insurance because we know just how dangerous this offense for the Pandas can be. They've yet to be able to put anything really meaningful on target in this game number 2, but we know exactly how well they've performed so far in this series. T-Man with the defense away. Marks will run onto this ball. They don't have a lot of boost, and then you can grab that corner, but that shot is going to be on target. It will pop out midfield right behind Mark. They get a bump on Kisvy, so that stalls out the Denver attack for the moment. Levani collects the ball just shy of midfield, but the best they can do is gather a boost and give enough time for their defense to get back on target, and that's one for Polar Bear. Marks gets dunked, and that's away for Denver. Can they read it? Off of the backboard, Levani with a miss, and that one is going to go by the wayside.
Yeah, 2 will go for Denver, but no player putting it in. T-Man even looking for a bump mid-air on the defender there as Polar Bear sends another one away from the net, gets done with for their efforts. Kisvy still playing spoiler in net. Mark passes that one out, looking for that passing play. It's going to go bar down and in for Sifry to even things up. The nice heads-up touch infield from Mark right out of the goal box to Sifry. And Sifry not even pressing the jump button at all. A little tap on that one, the right combination of momentum and direction. will tie the game for the Atlanta Pandas here as we continue in the back half of game 2.
It's a fortuitous bounce, and the only reason that really goes in is because T-Man was on 0 boost. If they have one or two more pads, they can at least put a hand up and get a challenge to that ball. However, they weren't really expecting that with 2 players forward. That ball unfortunately bounced out for them, and Marked trying to harass Levani on the back line. They get a little bit of contact, but still manages to make the save. Sifri with an air dribble from the side wall, looking to do it all themselves. They get met by 2 players for the scream, and they send it away.
Pi, I think fortuitous is the perfect term to describe the Atlanta Pandas game 2. For a little bit, for about 60 seconds or so, we started to see them consistently sending 2 players for every ball and double committing, and a little bit of panic as another one for Levani is going to go to the side as the Atlanta Pandas hunker down, but the Denver Scream have not stopped knocking yet. T-Man's got a bit of boost, gets a flip, uses the reset. Sifri's touch will just get sent back away. We're seeing a lot more offensive pressure, a lot more balls towards the net from the Denver Scream, but it's just the accuracy that's starting to plague them at this point.
And Atlanta not afraid to leave 1 or 2 players upfield, but it creates a little bit of an awkward defensive structure as Polar Bear numerous times has been left alone in defense. And another thing that we've noticed is Atlanta struggling a little bit with balls that are at least a little bit lower on the backboard that come off of a rebound, and whether it be on the far post or on the near post. But as time ticks down in game number 2, both of these teams on equal footing, looking like we'll see in overtime unless Denver can steal away something at the death. T-Man, challenged by 2 Atlanta player defenders, puts that ball on the ground.
I maybe just took a moment for the Denver Scream to quote-unquote wake up, as so many people say, shake off the game 1 jitters or just get warmed up and woken up. The shot totals in this game similarly equal. Sifri's going to get one past the final defender, but Levani, plenty of time, opts for the center touch, gives Mark a chance to send it back for the Pandas. Now T-Man, another one, center and off the ceiling. Levani trying to beat an offender. Polar Bear there is Polar Bear. Sifri accidentally cutting off 1 player. This one's now a look towards the net. Kisby looks for the dunk. 2 players go for the Pandas. Kisby secures a boost steal as the Denver Scream attempt to rotate back. T-Man just barely getting a bumper on that ball. The Atlanta Pandas quick to transition these plays. The Denver Scream answering them pretty quickly.
And that transition play for Atlanta was reminiscent of their earlier goal. The difference this time is that T-Man had boost in the tank with which to make the challenge and touch that ball just off of frame. But Polar Bear has other ideas. The Atlanta Pandas, they've got intent. They want to end this game, and they want to do it now. 1 minute into overtime, Marked with another shot just off of the near post. T-Man will see it away. Sifri grabs the boost. They will have to rotate back as all they have are 1 pad, and they're going to go all the way back to their corner. Now Denver with space to press, send 2. T-Man all alone, but they've got full boost in the tank. Sifri with a lead block. Doesn't end up making contact, and T-Man very patiently plays it infield to a teammate.
Both these teams have started hitting the ball a little bit harder, a little bit faster here in the 2nd minute of overtime. Polar Bear had possibly the closest look at the Atlanta Pandas, at the Denver Scream net for the Atlanta Pandas, but unfortunately could just not drop the ball down far enough and fast enough. Now Kisby off the ceiling, has the flip in reserve, takes a shot. Sifri will say that, but another player goes from the 3rd man position for the Atlanta Pandas. They're going to have to watch this. 2 up again on T-Man's ball to stop the touch. 2 players go. It's going to go post and out. Is there a 3rd man in position? No. Levani will not have to rotate out. A hard enough air roll will give the Denver Scream that win in game 2 off the nice shot from Levani and tie things up this series.
And really just unfortunate positioning, but great pressure from Denver to keep cycling the rotations through, make sure that Atlanta doesn't get comfortable or get any position advantage with which to be able to clear the ball. And unfortunately for Marked, as well as they performed in game number 1, they just got caught right on the post as that ball ended up going off of the backboard and landing right for Levani with which to take advantage of. A great showing from Denver, and it's a good response from what we saw out of them in game number 1.
Yeah, Pi, and the shot totals, like you mentioned, representative of game 1. Even more so is the defensive and counterplay transitions of the Denver Scream. Their infield pass toucher for at least 50% of their goals from the defensive position, resulting in a goal. And now in overtime, able to finish things out with just enough offensive pressure to catch the Atlanta Pandas off guard, and they will even this series up.
Yeah, and like we talked about with Atlanta, it's looked a little bit more sloppy than what we saw in game 1. I think that was more reminiscent of a better complete game from this group. But again, we go back to just how efficient Denver was on offense, it was causing Atlanta to have a lot of difficulty with clearing the ball, especially with the way that they like to play, leaving 1 or 2 players back. We saw it a lot in RLCS in this past weekend, right, where they were forced a lot of teams to play with 2 players back because of the threat that other teams pose on offense. We might have to see a little bit more of this. I know they like to play with 1 or 2 players upfield. They may have to make an adjustment, especially if Denver now has their legs underneath them.
Yeah, it's just an example of some of the highest standards of play, how quickly these rotations change. T-Man looking to touch their really nice ball back downward once more for a third man, but now Marked and Polar Bear forcing Kisvy to take time on defense. As the Denver Scream players still attempt to go for defensive touches from any position. Have to be careful, of course, to not confuse your teammates or trap them out in third man positions. Now infield pass. Marked to Polar Bear will be sent away. The Denver Scream bide their time. T-Man is beat to that ball. Kisvy will be forced to take it out from the third man position. He looks for an air dribble. He will bump the defender. The Denver Scream starting to slow things down, get a little bit more time and control on the ball. Touch from Sifri will be sent away.
An awkward save for sure, but one that still does the job. But a back pass from Polar Bear, maybe not the touch that they were intending. Marked will have to 50 with Kisvy. Instead, it's a clean win for the Denver Scream. That ball kept off of the goal line by Polar Bear. They will be on the ball once again. A double tap opportunity, but they don't have the boost with which to beat out Kisvy before it slams into the backboard. Levani with a free clear. T-Man they've got upfield. A redirect will go into the back of the net. Coast-to-coast offense for the Denver Scream.
It's exact replica play of what we were even talking about, you and I, Pi, the way that T-Man's just waiting upfield for this clear outward from Levani. And the heads-up play just in the air enough to give that ball just the slightest correction in momentum and direction and send it towards the net. Another lead for the Denver Scream early in Game 3, as these teams have started to slow things down and play a bit more control and possession-based game.
And it might come down to basically whoever scores the first goal ends up winning the match. It's been the trend so far in this series, and Denver with their first goal on the board in this game. A minute and a half has come and gone, and 2 players again committing for Atlanta. Kisvy with a missed touch. Polar Bear's just going to launch a shot on. It's just outside the reach of the outstretched octane of Levani, and we're back to an even scoreline.
Reminiscent of Game 2 as well. The Denver Scream score and the Atlanta Pandas answer back so quickly. Levani, unfortunately, had plenty of booze, still opted to go for the 100, and it will cost them an equalizer goal with the Atlanta Pandas here in Game 3. The offense and the scoreboard telling the story of a much more extended Denver Scream offense and pressure so far in this Game 3, Pi.
Sifri gonna have to collect pads as this ball is gonna float dangerously from their backboard, and they actually get a great 50 to go all the way down the field. T-Man lofting and popping the ball up across and looking for the ground pinch. Presumably they don't get enough behind it. Sifri with another shot cut out by T-Man. They don't have any boost, so they'll defer for Levani to send it down only as far as Marked. Marked 50 with Kisvy. That one's going to be dangerous. The Polar Bear can get on the end of it. They can. And that's 1 goal to the good.
And it's a story of redirects as well. And Mark just slow plays this one, gets a nice 50-50, and Polar Bear turning on a dime and beating the defender who was still behind them, getting enough of a negative angle redirect to drop that one in. It's a nice go-ahead goal for the Atlanta Pandas, and the combo of Marked to Polar Bear here in Game 3 is 2 for 2.
Yeah, this feels like we've said this a lot about T-Man, and I'm not sure if it's just their team style of how they play or just conditions of the circumstances, but it seems like on a lot of the goals that Atlanta's been able to score, T-Man just hasn't had that much boost in the tank. Nothing in the reserve, no resources with which to work and try and defend, and that's really not sustainable as we see them grab that corner boost. Fortunately for them, that ball will be off target. They're on the ball right now. They've got a chance to go for a low air dribble, but cut out once again by Marked.
And Pi, as if the caster's curse called it, T-Man picking up another corner boost from a teammate before challenging that ball. Now Polar Bears touch will be sent away by Levani, but 2.5 go for the Denver Scream. And now Levani going to take the nice ball from Kisvy out of the corner. Gets shut down quickly by Sifri, though, who's looking for bumps. Gets 50'd at the point of contact defensively by T-Man. Now Marked in position. Exhausts the last bit of boost to try to get that one centered. The team will double duty and try to body that one in, but T-Man on defense, all that boost did them enough good. They were able to keep that ball out and keep this lead at 1.
Man, what a great job on defense to just pin that ball to the post and the crossbar and prevent any sort of breathing room for this ball to go in. And on the other side, Denver trying everything they can, but Marked has a breakaway going down the other way. It will be 3 goals for the Pandas.
Oh, Pi, T-Man and the Denver Scream setting up so much offense, so much pressure, all for the third man to just commit a little bit too far, and Marked in position. All he had to do was touch that ball across the midfield line, and it became a breakaway to extend this lead for the Atlanta Pandas as we look to go into the final minute of Game 3.
Man, it was so close. The equalizing goal was right there, and I don't fault Denver for committing and going full on in, but what I will fault them for is another goal if this one ends up going through. Marked, again, doing everything they can on the offensive end, trying to will their team to victory. With a 2-goal cushion, it may just be enough. Polar Bear from the corner, contested by Levani. It will ricochet all the way to the middle of the field. Sifri trying to perhaps get a team pinch to go through. Polar Bear had other thoughts and went all the way back to grab their own corner boost. Kisvi with a ricochet will sit tantalizingly in front of the net, but nobody for Atlanta able to put that one through. And now it's again going the other way for Denver. They've got an opportunity. It's waiting right above the net. Sifri gets there in time. Can Kisvi slam it home? It's 1 back for the Denver Scream.
Yeah, 29 seconds on the clock. Pi and the Denver Scream are able to take one back off a nice center bounce off the post, and Kisvi in position to blast it and the defender into the net. The Atlanta Pandas, the story for them here in the final few seconds is just playing the clock. Teams at this caliber generally well enough at it, but the Denver Scream will be clawing tooth and nail, tire and bumper to put in an equalizer. Now Kisvi gets a 50-50. T-Man, unfortunately, a loose touch is going to send that one to the net. T-Man in position, though, gets the 100 boost. Infield touch, off the side, goes low, tries to fake one out. It's going to be off the backboard. Unfortunately, 10-second countdown now on screen, and no one in position for the Denver Scream. They've just got a few seconds to try to even this one out once more. Redirect touch will bounce down, unfortunately, and Game 3, Pi will go to the Atlanta Pandas.
Man. All the Atlanta fans in chat going to have to take a very deep breath after that one, as it almost slipped away, but they did just enough to hang on at the death. It really seemed like Denver, especially when it was 2-1, they had that opportunity to tie the game. It ends up going the other way, and they get a goal on top of that, which ends up being the difference. But man, the defense for Atlanta, it's great at times, but when the pressure is on, Denver seems to be able to find just the small openings that they're able to exploit. And it gets desperate for the Pandas, especially on their own goal line. We saw that right before the second goal for Denver went through, and again at the end of the game. They're gonna have to find a way to clean that up and do a little bit better on their own goal line. And if they want to end up going through and winning this series, which they are now up 2-1 in this series, it's got to be a little bit better from them, I think.
Yeah, Pi, if I'm not mistaken, like you mentioned, I do believe that second Denver goal resulting in a bit of double commits, a bit of overcommitting on defense from the Atlanta Pandas team, and it ultimately did cost them that goal in this match. But now the story for the Denver Scream will be looking to Game 4 that we're about to enter here. They're going to want to try to come out on top in this game as well as they did the previous two, although in the second of those two, the result at the end was not in their favor.
Sifri on the ball immediately off of the kickoff. Will 50 with Kisvi. It will continue on towards the Denver corner. Polar Bear with a shot across the bow of the Denver goal. It will go down and away back to the Atlanta Pandas corner where Levani has one touch, looking to go for a teammate, but T-Man backed off, and they're going to have to contest this with Mark. Do they do? It's going to waterfall down for Sifri, and it's the first on the board for the Pandas.
And it's just a tale of enough 50-50s and touches forward. This touch from Mark is all that's needed for Sifri to get in position and be able to put that one in. Only 24 or 25 seconds here into Game 4 Pi. The Atlanta Pandas have taken another lead.
Yeah, and again, don't want to harp on this point too much, but it just seems like T-Man, They really didn't have a whole lot of other options. They had to make that challenge with Marked. Otherwise, that ball was going to go in their net anyway. Just the 50, a little bit too much out of place. Would like to see that go a little bit more to the corner, I'm sure. But Denver trying to get one back. T-Man is going to be the one to slot it into the far corner.
And they will be there with the cockroach on top and the gummy, toothy wheels. It is T-Man in a, as of yet, unknown body to tie this game 40 or so seconds into Game 4 and keep the Denver Scream competitive. They want to keep that momentum going and try to take another lead. They'll need that to tie this series.
Man, from the Denver corner, contested by Sifri. It will loft up towards the backboard. Kisvi with an air carry all the way out to the midfield stripe before it's sent right back in. Marked will grab that boost away from T-Man. And Polar Bear with a shot. T-Man can't keep it out. It's a number of fortuitous 50s that go in the way of the Pandas, and they take the lead once again.
By fortuitous, the name of this game, you almost aren't sure which part of the flip for Polar Bear secured that one. Although the air roll was on point, Carr in position, and the flip perfectly timed to dunk that defender. Polar Bear will put in their first in Game 2 and the Atlanta Pandas second to try to extend their lead.
And 3 goals in the space of just over a minute. So both teams, of course, with their offenses firing on all cylinders, but exposing the weaknesses in these defensive structures so far for either team. Sifri runs onto the ball. They grabbed that midfield boost, and they have Polar Bear in their back pocket to get another challenge on the ball. All 3 players for Denver on the same side. Have to space that out just a little bit more, but for now it's able to be cleared away. Kisvi with one more touch, not able to securely run onto it as they ran out of boost, but they're doing their best to get the defense out of the way. T-Man, unfortunately, not able to make contact, and Polar Bear trying to flick over once again. Kisvi sends it away.
Probably that bump from Kisvi, almost effective enough. Although we are seeing these Denver Scream players a bit clumped up, I'm watching them be a bit more reserved, a bit more patient. The communication clearly on point are coming together for that squad. Not having overcommitted a ton yet, they've been able to keep this at a 1-goal lead as T-Man rotates back, watching his teammates go up. A bit more of a defensive play from them. Kisvi looking for the dunk in Levani's play, but now T-Man into position, and Levani will turn quickly, shot quickly at net. Back infield from Levani. T-Man's there. Didn't know whether or not to wait for Kisvi, who opts to get boost and go for a touch here now. Kisvi the air dribble, gets a flip, reset off the backboard. Levani shot wide, almost past the defender. T-Man's shot on the impending follow-up comes in too, but that one's going to be in time with an Atlanta Pandas defender, and now they will transition to offense, or look to.
I spent the last 30 to 45 seconds or so tracking Sifri's movements across the field. They were actually on low boost for the entire time with which I was looking from before Denver started their previous offensive attack. They actually had to go all the way down to the other side in Denver's side to get the 100 corner pad, and they actually ended up getting another corner pad in their own territory. But Marked with another shot, able to make up for the deficits of the resources of their teammates and just carry it all the way down.
Yeah, this touch from Marks, just a bit of natural advantage. Wraps around that ball quick enough to send it in the other direction past the defender and extend this lead as we enter the back 2 minutes. The Denver Scream's road to a tie series or tie game getting that much harder and farther away.
Off the kickoff, Marked finds the ball bouncing right towards their car. Kisvi with another air dribble going over. Polar Bear. Sifri is going to have to make the save. T-Man comes crashing in, unable to force it through the Atlanta Pandas defense, and now it's another breakaway opportunity, but Sifri again does not have a lot of boost, but they have just enough momentum to see that ball into the Scream net.
And it makes you wonder, Kisvi gets the full boost here, but just unsure of which ball to challenge. It unfortunately turns to a very quickly 2v1 as that pass from Marked makes a playmaker medal for them, and Sifri in position didn't need that boost, just able to put that one in and extend this lead that much further. The lead now in score sheet reminiscent of Game 1, still with 90 seconds left to play as Marked waits in position, been positioned correctly enough, even with no boost, to send that ball away, and now Polar Bear cheats up, does get the 100 boost for their reward as the Atlanta Pandas start to rotate out and take a bit of a wider berth on the strength of their lead.
T-Man waits for this ball to drop down. Polar Bear with no boost sends it infield for Mark. They get the dunk, but 2 players for Denver keeping the ball out of the net, at least for the moment. Sifri with a touch that beats Kisvi. T-Man will rotate around into the corner and get 1 touch. Can they get another touch over Polar Bear? It's now a 2v1 opportunity. Levani, can they circle around? They get the shot and the angle, and they get 1 back for Denver.
And Pi, unless the director cam tricked me here, T-Man possibly, or Levani was able to get a bump. Yeah, T-Man bumping Marked out of the way, was able to make that heads-up play happen as the T-Rex screams out of the goal. Now a 2-goal lead for the Atlanta Pandas that the Denver Scream will have to try to make up, but similar to the final seconds of the previous games. It may just be a game of playing the clock for these Atlanta Pandas.
All in all, I think they'd get a little bit more comfort from one more insurance goal, but the lead's still at 2. It could be all the comfort that they need. Denver going to have to get on their horse, and they're going to have to get one more with time left. Another shot deftly saved away by Polar Bear. Kisvy with another opportunity. Again, we see Sifri on no boost, able to make the save. Trying to clear it out. Levani intercepting at the midfield stripe. Sifri will grab that midfield boost, but the ball will go over their head. Polar Bear, it drops for them. They take back to the air. They get one more touch. Levani in the corner. Denver going to have to go end to end if they want to get this game back on its head, but it will not happen. Time will expire, and that ball will touch the ground. Atlanta with a 3-1 series lead.
And Pi, as the final seconds of that game tick down, you get to see the boost totals and values of all 6 players on the pitch. The Denver Scream in possession of a lot more boost, but unfortunately it's less consequential when you're down 2 goals. So Atlanta will now look to close things out in Game 5 and continue making the road that much harder for the Denver Scream. I believe eliminating them from contention, and the Atlanta Pandas would go ahead to play the Philadelphia Plague. But the Denver Scream, like you mentioned, played the Philadelphia Plague and won earlier this series. They're not quite afraid of that matchup. It's just now the Atlanta Pandas that stand in their way.
Well, we still got at least one more game win for Atlanta before we see that go through. I just want to take a second. And when we had the advanced statistics up at the bottom of the screen, you could see a little bit more field domination leaning in favor of Denver. However, the scoreboard isn't in favor of that. So for as much pressure as they're generating, they are not finding success, at least in terms of being able to put the ball in the back of the net. They had 10 shots on target in this game alone, but again, the defense for Atlanta tightened up just a little bit. We knew that they would have to do that coming in from Game 3 to Game 4, and they did. So congratulations and props to them, but job's not done yet for Atlanta and Denver. You know they're going to be clawing for every inch that in what time they have remaining in this series.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of smart heads-up play in time for both of these squads in their own respective ways. A lot of conserving boost, waiting on your teammates to rotate, playing calm and safe, and taking the 50-50 in positions when you have no boost, as well as being upfield and looking for defensive clears that you can turn into offensive plays. We're seeing a lot of that efficiency from both of these teams. Unfortunately, it's just a bit more in the Atlanta Pandas' favor when it does happen for them. Now, the Denver Scream, of course, being effective in those plays as well. But while both of these teams have had their looks at opening the scoring early in the games, it's just been the Atlanta Pandas who are there when the game clock ticks down.
Oh, that's just an unfortunate miscommunication from Atlanta. Will they be punished for it? Levani's going to be able to slot it in right underneath the crossbar, but you can see 2 players, they thought about it. Marked actually turns in front of Polar Bear, and Polar Bear thought that they might be able to pop the ball up and go for another air dribble, but Denver, capitalizing on the mistakes, able to take an early lead.
Yeah, that fast thinking and flexibility from them shows exactly what they're made of, and when they come through with that efficiency in team plays, they really come through. T-Man trying to set one up, 50-50s too, and gets an almost neutral ball for it. Levani's touch will go forward, but more downward in momentum. Now Kisvy in midfield takes a 50-50, almost makes it their own, but now Sifri off the post gets a flip, maybe didn't intend to, just trying to pass that ball infield. Kisvy has time, got a player in tow. T-Man's going to take the demo, take out the defender, and it will be, at this point, the largest lead this Denver Scream have held in this series.
And I love this touch, especially very well done from Kisvy to make it a possessive first touch instead of a dynamic one where they have to run onto it, keeping it close and letting their teammate do the work of clearing out the remaining defenders in net. And of course, with a great finish to capitalize it all off with a 2-goal lead now. And as you point out, the largest that Denver has had so far in this series. They're not done yet. They're starting to pour the pressure on.
Yeah, lead to hold strong too. We're already seeing them play faster just in the final seconds. We're seeing bumps on the goal line. We're seeing infield pass plays. We're seeing quick boost secures and then immediate challenges, rapid challenges to take 50-50s and try to win them and get that ball away from the Pandas. Now T-Man in position as Levani cheats up as well. Polar Bear has to try to carry this one out. Gets 50'd hard and twice by Levani. T-Man takes 2 out. It's now 2v1 on behalf of the Pandas, unsure where the final defender will spawn. But now securing boost and winning 50-50s are this Denver Scream squad. They don't look to slow down now.
That's amazing. You end up having a 2v0, in fact, and the ball just didn't bounce the correct way for Denver. And Kisvy They've got the ball now. It bounced correctly for them on that opportunity. It's still in a dangerous position in front of the Pandas net. Eventually, it's cleared away. Sifri earned all their boost trying to get to that ball. They collect that corner 100 pad. It will go off the backboard, and Sifri will punish the mistakes of the misses by the Denver defense and get one back.
Oh, and Pi, these mistakes in just a fraction of a second. Kisvi not able to get that touch, is just dealing with multiple offenders, and Sifri's touch will bounce off a defender and go in hard, 78 miles per hour to cut this lead in half for the Denver Scream. We saw them the Atlanta Pandas start to have to play a lot faster to try to make this happen as their lead, the lead over them extended rather quickly, but now they've already been able to cut it in half. The Denver Scream will have to be careful and count their lucky stars that they were able to keep this lead so far.
Levani outfield for Kisvi. They missed the initial challenge, but they're able to get another touch on the ball. It will fall for Polar Bear. Sifri taking to the air, T-Man with enough boost to turn around and make that over-the-shoulder save. We've seen them do that numerous times so far into this series. Polar Bear rotating on 0 boost. In fact, the only one with boost is Sifri, and they're waiting this ball from Denver. Kisvi will go over the top, leaving it for Levani, trying to send it in. T-Man finally, the third man comes through, and it's a 3-goal scoring for Denver.
Yeah, the 2-goal lead off the heads-up play. Kisvi and Levani setting that one up, and unfortunately just overcoming the Atlanta Pandas defense. Pi, their lead extends to 2 yet again for the second time this game with 2 minutes and 14 seconds left to play. They're going to have to hold it to try to keep this series going, because if the Atlanta Pandas get a strike back at a tie game or worse, they're going to be looking very dangerous.
So far, we knew Denver was going to have to respond and play perhaps their best Rocket League so far in this series. It certainly seems like the offense has come to play. The defense, like we've seen, relatively commonplace in this series on behalf of both teams. Couple mistakes, but so far nothing that has harmed them to such a degree. They still have a 2-goal lead. Kisvi trying to add one more to that total. T-Man looking to strike. They have a double tap opportunity. It's a free backboard. It will go off the post, but Levani cleans things up.
And Pi, it's the boost advantage. We're starting to see it come out a lot strong. A lot more boost on behalf of the whole squad for the Denver Scream versus the Atlanta Pandas. You see the 2 defenders there in net, both at right around 50% or under, and Sifri let go of the trigger on that boost pad, just knowing that ball was unfortunately going to go in. A very nice lead, and again, the largest lead the Denver Scream have held in a game this series. Looks to be a good position for them to take another one off the cuff of the Atlanta Pandas.
And we talked about how there's still a lot of time, 90 seconds left in this game, but with a 3-goal lead, and especially the way that Atlanta's been playing so far in this game in particular, you might just want to start thinking about preparing for the next game and start adjusting your play style to match that. Denver getting one over. One Atlanta player will fall harmlessly across the field and across the back post. Polar Bear again with a missed challenge, not able to dunk and keep possession for Atlanta. Demolition comes through, marked, actually able to take away one of the players for Denver and see the ball out.
And Pi, T-Man even getting a touch technically on net there, although it was sent away at the point of contact. We're seeing both these teams bring out the demos and just try to create more space for themselves, but a lot more so in favor of and a lot more effective for the Denver Scream. We're still seeing them with a lot of boost advantage and possession time on this ball as the seconds just tick away. We did see some Atlanta Pandas players getting some demos and staying supersonic without full tanks of boost, but it just shows how much harder and more creative they're being forced to play with a lack of boost than the Denver Scream players controlling it all for their advantage.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit more into it in the postgame, but I think Denver, to your point, is exceptionally more proficient at getting demolitions when they matter. And in terms of mattering, I don't think that goal is going to do a whole lot for Atlanta, but there's still 10 seconds. I mean, it's not probabilistic, but it still is technically possible for a comeback in this scenario. But for Atlanta, they're going to have to get a favorable kickoff.
Yeah, and of course, Pi, the primary objective of the Denver Scream, they even send 2 up, not going to let that one happen. 6 seconds, now 5 on the clock, and Kisvi will rip one at the backboard. Both Denver Scream players up. The shot technically on net, and the follow-up off the bounce with the defender as well. But this win, a strong performance for the Denver Scream, and the one they exactly needed.
And they're able to force, game number 6, so we will see at least one more game in this series. And we'll go back to the earlier point that we were making before time expired in that game. I think it really came down to the physicality of the Denver Scream, especially the way that they were able to open up the back end of Atlanta and be able to create space. You saw on multiple goal attempts the way that the offense was just clicking and centered around sending a man up and being able to clear out the net or get a demolition to open things up on the back end. And for Atlanta, I think they kind of got a little bit off of their game. They kind of tried to match that physical intensity, which I don't think lends itself to the way that they play best. And for Denver, it's a great job of getting the other team to adapt to your play style, the one that you're most effective at. Atlanta, they just got to stay close to their game and get back to what was working for them.
Pi, you even mentioned the influx of demo plays from the Atlanta Pandas on the tail of the Denver Scream, doing the exact same thing. The scoreboard in that game tells a story as well of team play and assists, because every goal scored in Game 4 for both of these squads had a registered assist on the board as well. A playmaker medal, in fact, for T-Man on behalf of the Denver Scream, and Polar Bear 2 assists as well on the 2 goals for the Atlanta Pandas. So a lot of coordination, a lot of team play, but in Game 4, the cards came up the Denver Scream numbers, and they were able to push us to this decisive Game 6.
Yeah, and I think we've been waiting for T-Man to kind of have their breakout performance. We finally saw that. They were instrumental not only in that physical play, but also being able to set their teammates up for success with those assists that you mentioned. And Polar Bear trying as they might with Levani, no boost on the back line for Denver to get things opened up, but it's going the other way for the Denver Scream. Sifri is going to have to contend with a ball off of the near post. Fortunately, after one chance aside for both teams, it's still at 0.
Yeah, and the Denver Scream now beginning this game on offense. A rare miss from Sifri. Polar Bear in position to try to secure that ball, but will get demoed for their efforts. Now Marked forced to rush into position, have 40 or so boosts in the tank, spending it all just trying to get that ball out, and even so, it's answered by a Denver Scream player. In Atlanta, Marked getting a demo onto the defender as well there, but now Kisby with an open net's gonna make it pay. It's on, make the Atlanta Pandas pay. I'm not quite sure where Sifri was, but at this point it will not matter because the Denver Scream have gotten a lead in Game 6.
I think it's just a little bit of an over-rotation. You saw Mark to go for a demolition earlier on, and then Polar Bear was not able to actually make contact with the ball at the 18-yard box for Denver. And again, not really sure where Sifri was at that point in the rotation, but it's a free ball for Denver to get their first goal on the board, and it's in danger of getting a second as that one's just going to walk in from midfield.
Yeah, Kisby getting credited for the goal, and still more bump plays on behalf of the the Denver Scream T-Man there in support for that one, but from midfield it will be Kisby, and T-Man bodying a player off the ball that was shot soon after. So again, this physicality, these bump plays and demolitions coming up more in favor of the Denver Scream statistically almost every time so far.
Lofted ball comes across to the near side of the field. T-Man able to redirect that one away. Sifri from the sidewall going back to the middle for Polar Bear. T-Man will climb the ladder and send it away off of the backboard, but the pressure's still on for Denver. T-Man with one save. The follow-up is just off target. Levani outfield for T-Man with a touch. We'll send it to the corner. Not on target, but still able to break the pressure is this Denver Scream. And with a 2-goal lead, that's really all that they need to do.
And of course, Pi, at this speed of play, at times the ball erratically bouncing off the defenders as the Denver Scream try as they might to extend the lead even further. Already sitting at a nice 2-0 lead here in 6, and now all eyes on the Atlanta Pandas as Kisby's going to air dribble this one out. Looks for a bump, but Levani will still be in position to get another one towards the center. Polar Bear tasked to make the save, and it does register. Now Sifri off the sidewall. A 50 to play, but unfortunately not enough boost in the tank as the Denver Scream looks to be controlling the advantage in this game as well. Now Kisby in to challenge, gets it over the head of one player, Sifri. That shot's at net. Polar Bear's going to look for one, but T-Man privy to it already. A savior medal here in Game 6 for T-Man, and although that one's going to go in for Sifri, it's not from lack of trying on behalf of this Scream.
Just pressure, shot after shot, and you can't fault T-Man doing everything they can to put their car between the ball and the net. Sifri just finds the one opening on the far side of the net with which to be able to slot that ball into. And they get one back for Atlanta, but it's a little bit too much one-touch play. I think Mario can attest to that for the lads in red. Talked about that at length, I'm sure, in their coaching sessions, but they go up with one touch, and then that's really the extent of the play. But so far, they're able to get one back. Denver trying to escort this ball down and reopen that lead. Levani is available in the middle. It will not get to them. Sifri cuts it out at the point of attack.
Now marked up. A little bit low on boost. They're Atlanta. Oh, that one's actually going to go in, bouncing off almost two defenders, it looked like, or maybe the ball has enough momentum. Levani went for the boost, wasn't sure whether or not to go for it, didn't expect their teammate to not get a 50, and that one unfortunately will go in. Just off the tiniest of errors, Pi, the Atlanta Pandas have evened this Game 6 out.
And it looked like you could see as the ball went under T-Man's car that it had a yellow streak on it. So it looked like they made contact, but it just ended up going in the opposite direction. And unfortunately for them, the third man was not available. And Marked is in no position, again, caught out on the near post to make this save. Denver, after giving up 2 straight, able to get the lead right back.
Pi, you want to ask at this point what happened? This ball threading the needle of Atlanta Pandas defenders, and you'd say almost an act of God, but if not for the Denver Scream just earning these leads over and over and over, you would have maybe thought when the Atlanta Pandas were able to tie the game so quickly that they'd begun to fight again, but just, again, the tiniest of errors results in another go-ahead goal for the Denver Scream.
That one almost with a redirect from Polar Bear. We've seen that a lot where they cheat up and they try to get a ball off of the bumper of their car, but they'll get taken off of the field. Marked will have to make the challenge. They will do so at the midfield line. Kisvy control gets bumped hectically off of the ball. Marked has to come screaming and racing all the way back as Levani puts a shot on target. It's sent away to the corner. Kisvy with no boost will have to 50 across the back line of Atlanta. T-Man having to backflip and instead chase this ball as it runs along the sidewall. Marked is waiting at midfield for that boost to spawn. Eventually it does. Unfortunately enough for them, the ball had not gone over their head, so they were actually in position to make the defensive play.
Yeah, this one's still just loose in the Atlanta Pandas half as things start to get a little sloppy. Marked flying in for that one's going to give T-Man another look at the net, and the lead will be doubled once again for the Denver Scream. Unfortunately, just a little bit low on booster, a little bit slow in positioning are the Atlanta Pandas, and the Denver Scream will even out this lead again.
And I think Mark thought that T-Man had every intention of at least playing that ball or getting a 50 or something to some degree, but great patience and execution on the side of the Denver Scream to wait for that opening to pop up and make itself available. 2 players committed for Atlanta, and it really left the third in a no-win scenario. Now, as you said, the lead is 2. Getting a little bit more comfortable is this Denver Scream team. Marked from the midfield line is going to look to perhaps get a bump. They thought better of it. They'll have to rotate out as the ball finds itself to the opposite side of the field.
Now T-Man, another aerial dribble, another air dribble with plenty of boost is going to create another position just bouncing off defenders as we enter the final seconds of this game. By Levani's touch off the backboard, just beating one player to the ball, and Polar Bear not in a quick enough position. This game's going to go decisively for the Denver Scream.
Yeah, and really what's hurting Atlanta is that you have to respect those types of reads from a team that's as good as this Denver squad is. You know, you have T-Man, if they jump at a ball that's uncontested towards the backboard, you have to go up, even if they have no boost, and respect the fact that they can be able to make a play even if they don't have the resources to do it. And if they end up faking that ball, well, then you're just out of position, and it opens things up for the third man to come in and put it into a relatively empty net. Denver, for all intents and purposes, they've done extremely well in playing patiently beyond what they had been able to do in the earlier part of this series. So, winner take all, Game 7 is going to be on the line for both of these teams. And it really looks like Denver, having come off of the back of 2 straight wins, they've got the momentum on their side.
And Pi, you're absolutely right. People can call it game 1 jitters. You can call it Denver waking up. You can call it whatever you want. But the Atlanta Pandas players are also not as strong as they were in the first several games. And now, like you mentioned, no bracket reset. This is a Game 7 losers finals, and the winner of this one will go on to play the Philadelphia Plague for this Noodle Cup Series finals. So, Game 7, the Denver Scream able to fight their way back, turning up the offensive plays and physicality, and enough pressure to just catch the Atlanta Pandas off guard in the back half of these final few games. Absolutely shaping up to be a final knockout of Game 7.
And what we saw when the advanced statistics were on the screen is that finally, I think for at least this game and not, if not the game before that, it was Denver out marshaling the Pandas in both terms of field domination and possession of the ball. So it's finally equalizing itself from what we saw earlier on in the series where Denver had that advantage, but they did not have the goals to go with it. So if Atlanta is going to want to win this series, they got to find a way to just maintain possession of the ball and not give Denver so much time with which to do what they want with it.
Yeah, Pi, I think you're exactly right. The winning formula for the Atlanta Scream, the Atlanta Pandas, I should say, the first few games was that possession. And now if you give the Denver Scream an inch, they've already shown in the past several games they will take a mile. A Denver player demoed in net, but unfortunately no Atlanta Panda player there to follow up. And now more bumps continuing to come in already in the first 30 seconds that the Atlanta Pandas get their early looks at net.
A little bit of miscommunication. Levani is going to make them pay. Both players foregoing the ball as it's rolling towards the net. How can you let this happen if you are on the Pandas side of the field? My goodness, talk about not communicating. Oh my goodness, that's something that you don't see at even this level and higher levels of Rocket League. Just an absolute moment of mental lapse on behalf of Atlanta, and Denver capitalizing on that mistake.
Oh, Pi, those absolute breakdowns at this standard of play, like you said, you never see them, you hate to see them, but two players turning away from the ball, both thinking the other one was going for it with seemingly no communication, and now the Denver Scream not even done knocking on the door as we enter minute 2 of Game 7 marked off the board. If not for Kisby, would have equalized this game, and now the Denver Scream looking to push this one out. Loose ball, Aaron goes into midfield, Sifri beats one as T-Man looks to hunker down. Kisby up to get a touch forward. Now Sifri back infield. No boost, though, as the Denver Scream players continue to attempt to lock that down. Polar Bears steals one Scream boost for the Atlanta Pandas. And now Polar Bears touch off the sidewall. Denver Scream player went, but that one was missed. Now T-Man on the back. Plenty of boost. Rips one into midfield. Looks for the follow-up as well. Reaches the ball. Best two players, but unfortunately not the third. Now Kisby in position as well, as the Denver Scream start their offense and begin knocking on the door with more boost advantage than they even had in the previous games.
And you got to wonder how that mistake is going to impact the mental of the Pandas team, right? Because you talked about going into this game, particularly how Denver had pretty much all of the momentum, having won 2 straight games, and now you gift them essentially the lead in the earliest possible part of Game 7 in a winner-take-all scenario. That's something that you cannot have happen. And marked, they've seen them a lot in this series. They're trying as hard as they can. They had another good look at net. They had one right there as well. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to find any success at halfway through this Game 7.
And you even mentioned in Game 1 that mistake could cost the Atlanta Pandas their whole season. At this speed and standard of play, games often will go in one goal directions all the time. The Denver Scream could, for all we can even see at the end of this, just hunker down and say, you know what, we don't need to overextend. We can control the boost. We can play defense. We can keep the ball on the Atlanta Pandas half. And that strategy could very well take them into the finals. They will not even need to, though. Levani off the car of Kisby and off that car body, off the ceiling, another touch and down. Levani will sneak it past 2, and it's an extended lead again for this Denver Scream.
But just a little bit too far behind, and every challenge it seems like it's getting away from Atlanta in a way that's benefiting Denver. They're thinking almost 1.5 steps ahead, and Levani with another shot on target. Polar Bear fortunately in position to make that save. It's just a little bit too far behind where I think the Pandas would like to play. They got to speed things up and find a way to maybe condense these rotations a little bit, because you can see both players on the wings. Maybe bring it in a little bit closer to the middle of the field, and you can have a little bit more pressure generated on behalf of the Pandas.
And a demo in net. Loose one as well. Marked was coming in, and Polar Bear unfortunately took that ball away from them, and now the breakaway pie will result in a third goal for the Denver Scream, the first for Kisby. And just off the unfortunate mishap, this lead and the matchup with Philadelphia getting further and further away from this Atlanta Pandas squad.
And in just north of 90 seconds remaining in this game, I don't think you had to send the whole house at that particular moment. It wasn't a pull the goalie scenario, but now it gets even further away from Atlanta as another goal will go through off of the kickoff. It's a 2v1, marked trying every which way and ends up being a 3v1 as Levani is able to slam it into the back of the net, and they had a hill to climb. It's now become Mount Everest.
Yeah, Pi, 90 seconds and 4 goals against a squad that does not want to give you one. Pi, the Denver Scream absolutely writing the textbook this series on how a slow start can play in your favor if you're able to play as an effective team, functioning as a unit, control the boost, look for defensive clears into offense transitions, and now even the smallest of open nets for the Atlanta Pandas, they just starts to look like an impossibility with 60 seconds on the clock. That's 1 goal for 15 seconds against virtually 3 players who do not want to give you one. The Denver Scream, all eyes on them now, and the rematch with Philadelphia coming up soon, hopefully for them.
It's standing there on the horizon, and it's getting oh so close. T-Man trying to add even more punishment to an already flagellated team. Sifri to the wall with no boost in the tank. They're going to try and get something infield for Marked, but it's not available. Marked actually does pick up that midfield boost, but it's been a tale of resource mismanagement on behalf of the Pandas, just unable to get anything going in this game number 7, and the final 20 seconds are yet to be played out, but really at this point it may not matter.
Just a formality now as the 10-second countdown appears on the screen. This Denver Scream squad faced a 3-1 game issue and was able to come back, rally, and win 3 to win this series, win the lower bracket finals, and advance to the Noodle Cup Series finals against the Philadelphia Plague.
Setting up a rematch for the ages after having been sent down to the lower bracket by Philadelphia. Denver has a date with destiny, and they will have to endure perhaps 14 straight games as they will have to, coming from the lower bracket, reset the bracket against Philadelphia. So we talked about how long the road was for Atlanta to get here. It's going to be even longer for Denver as they're going to have to win 2 straight series if they want to come home with the Noodle Cup Series title. Unfortunately for the Pandas, their road ends here. Their Cloud9-esque magical run through the lower bracket stymied by the Scream in the lower bracket final. But a congratulations to the lads. I will say, full disclosure, general manager of the Atlanta Pandas for Rocket League. I even was sporting my Atlanta Pandas jersey. Shout out Guardian Pro Line. I'm sure there's exclamation point merch as well if you want to grab your own jersey as well to support your own team. But a good showing from the lads this season, and I could not be more proud of how they were able to overcome adversity and challenges throughout the season to make even as far as they did in this lower bracket run. However, like we said previously, congratulations to Denver as they will be the ones moving on to the grand final.
Yeah, Pi, like you mentioned, it was a hard-fought road for both of these teams, but the Denver Scream absolutely showing they've got what it takes. And even with the previous match against the Atlanta Pandas in the the Philadelphia Plague in the rearview mirror, they now look towards them again for this Noodle Cup bracket series final. Just an absolutely storied run for them, and like you mentioned, congratulations to them. They've earned their rematch, and they've shown they've got what it took in this match to take them on.
Well, a fantastic series that we didn't necessarily think would have gone all the way, especially at the midway point. Atlanta having a 3-1 series advantage coming out of game number 4, but Denver made it very interesting and ends up securing that series win. And that, unfortunately, for us is going to conclude the broadcast for this evening. However, as far as I am aware, we will have 2 series on Sunday, if not more, depending on how scheduling works out. So I anticipate that we will have even more Rocket League action available for you guys on Sunday evening. But for now, that's far out. I'm Pyr Squared. Thank you so much for joining us here on this broadcast. Congratulations again to the Denver Scream once again in the Noodle Cup Series. We will see you on Sunday.